Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. Picture this. It's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. You are standing in front of your third period algebra class. You have just delivered what you consider to be an Oscar-worthy explanation of quadratic equations. You've used visuals. You've cracked a few jokes. You've scaffolded the instruction perfectly. You look out at the sea of faces, and what do you see? In the front row, there's Maya, staring intensely at the board, pencil poised, ready to attack the problem. She knows she can do it, and she thinks it's important. In the back corner, there's Jason. Jason is smart, you know he is, but he's currently trying to balance a pencil on his nose. He knows he could do the math, but he just doesn't see the point. Then there's Sarah by the window. She's got her hood up. She's staring at the paper with a look of sheer panic. She thinks math is important, maybe too important, but she is convinced she's going to fail no matter what she does. And finally, there's Mike. Mike is asleep. He doesn't think he can do it, and he doesn't care anyway. As teachers, we lose sleep over Jason, Sarah, and Mike. We try to bribe them with pizza parties. We threaten them with detention. We call their parents. We plead, but often we feel like we are pushing a boulder uphill. This is where expectancy value theory, EVT, comes in. Developed extensively by Jacqueline Eccles, Alan Wakefield, and their colleagues, this theory is arguably the most practical tool in an educator's psychological utility belt. It moves beyond the vague notion of motivation and breaks it down into a specific, solvable equation. It explains why Maya works, why Jason checks out, why Sarah panics, and why Mike sleeps. We are going to pop the hood on student motivation. We aren't just going to talk about getting kids to work. We are going to explore the delicate psychological calculus that happens in a student's brain every time you assign a task. We're going to look at the two critical questions every learner asks. Can I do this? And do I want to do this? And see how the answers to those questions dictate everything that happens in our classrooms. The core equation. It takes two to tango. At its heart, expectancy value theory posits a simple but profound relationship. Motivation is not a single entity. It is the product of two distinct forces. Motivation equals expectancy times value. Notice the multiplication sign. That is the kicker. In math, if you multiply anything by 0, the answer is 0. This means you can have a student who values the subject immensely. They want to be a doctor. They know grades matter. They love science, high value. But if they believe they are fundamentally incapable of passing your chemistry class, 0 expectancy, their motivation will be 0. They won't try because nobody invests effort in a lost cause. Conversely, you can have a student who is a math whiz. They know they can ace the test with their eyes closed. High expectancy. But if they think the material is boring, useless, and for nerds, 0 value, their motivation will be 0. Why bother doing something that feels like a waste of time? For educators, this is a game changer. It means we have to stop treating unmotivated students as a monolithic group. We have to diagnose the problem. Is it an expectancy deficit or is it a value deficit? The treatment for one is very different from the treatment for the other. Expectancy. Can I do this? Let's start with the first half of the equation, expectancy for success. This isn't just about actual ability. It's about perceived ability. It's the story the student tells themselves about their future performance on a specific task. It's the voice in their head that says, I got this, or I'm going to crash and burn. Roots of expectancy. Where does this belief come from? It's not random. It's built on years of data collection. 1. Past experiences. This is the big one. If a student has failed their last 5 spelling tests, their expectancy for the 6th one is going to be in the basement. Success breeds expectancy. Failure breeds doubt. 2. Verbal persuasion. What do parents and teachers say? If a student constantly hears, "You're just not a math person," they internalize that. 3. Vicarious experience. Watching peers succeed or fail. If a student sees someone who looks like them, acts like them, and has a similar background succeeding, their own expectancy goes up, the self-schema. Over time, these experiences harden into a self-schema or identity. We see this all the time in middle school. Kids start labeling themselves. I'm an athlete. I'm a writer. I'm the dumb kid. Once a student decides I am not good at school, their expectancy becomes rigid. Even if they get a good grade, they brush it off as luck. The teacher made a mistake, or the test was easy. They defend their low expectancy because it protects them from disappointment. As teachers, our job is to crack that shell. We have to engineer wins. We can't just tell a kid, you can do it. That's cheap talk. We have to show them they can do it by giving them a task that is just challenging enough, supporting them until they succeed, and then saying, see, you did that because you used this strategy, not because of luck. We have to rebuild their data set, one data point at a time. Value. Do I want to do this? Now let's look at the second bucket. This is where EVT really shines. Most theories just say values matter. But Eccles and Wigfield broke value down into 4 distinct components. This is crucial because a student might value a task for one reason but hate it for another. The 4 components of subjective task value are 1. Attainment value, identity; 2. Intrinsic value, interest; 3. Utility value, usefulness; 4. Cost, the price to pay. Let's break these down because this is where the magic happens. 1. Attainment value. The who am I? Factor attainment value is all about identity. It's the importance a student places on doing well on a task because it confirms their self-image. If a student sees herself as a future scientist, then doing well in biology has high attainment value. It validates who she is. If she fails, it's not just a bad grade, it's an identity crisis. On the flip side, consider a student whose identity is wrapped up in being the class clown or the tough guy. For him, succeeding in poetry class might actually have negative attainment value. If he writes a beautiful poem, it conflicts with his image. He might tank the assignment on purpose just to stay on brand. Teacher tip: we have to help students expand their identities. We need to show them that being street smart and book smart aren't mutually exclusive. We need to create a classroom culture where being a learner is a shared identity for everyone, so that success feels like belonging, not betraying their tribe. 2. Intrinsic value, the fun factor. This is the holy grail. Intrinsic value is the enjoyment the student gets from the task itself. It's the flow state. It's reading a book because you can't put it down, not because it's on the syllabus. When intrinsic value is high, teaching is easy. The students are self-propelling. But let's be real, not every lesson is going to be a thrill ride. Learning irregular verbs or memorizing the periodic table isn't always inherently fun. Teacher tip: while we should always try to make lessons engaging, relying only on intrinsic value is a trap. If the only reason kids work is because it's fun, they will quit the second things get hard or boring. We need to build the other values to sustain them through the grind. 3. Utility value, the what's in it for me factor. This is the workhorse of secondary education. Utility value is about the usefulness of the task for future goals. Mr. Smith, when are we ever going to use this? We hate that question, but it's a valid inquiry into utility value. If a student wants to be a video game designer and you can show them how geometry is essential for coding graphics, suddenly that boring math worksheet has high utility value. Research by Chris Hulleman and others has shown that helping students make these connections themselves is powerful. Instead of telling them why it's useful, ask them to write a paragraph connecting the lesson to their own life. When they generate the connection, it sticks. Teacher tip: be honest. If you're teaching something that they genuinely won't use in their daily life, like analyzing 18th century poetry, don't lie and say, you'll need this at the grocery store. Pivot to a different utility. You won't analyze poems at the bank, but learning to deconstruct complex language will help you read a contract or win an argument. Sell the skill, not just the content. 4. Cost, the hidden tax. Here is the component that often gets ignored, but it is often the deal breaker. Every task has a cost. Effort cost. This is going to take so much energy. Opportunity cost. If I do this homework, I can't play Xbox. Emotional cost. If I try and fail, I will look stupid. This makes me anxious. You can have a task with high attainment, intrinsic, and utility value. But if the cost is too high, the student will still fold. Think about the anxious perfectionist, Sarah, from our intro. She values the grade, attainment, utility. She might even like the subject, intrinsic. But the emotional cost, the sheer terror of making a mistake, is so high that it paralyzes her. She procrastinates, not because she doesn't care, but because the cost of engaging is too painful. Teacher tip: our job is to lower the cost. We can reduce effort cost by scaffolding, breaking big tasks into small, manageable chunks. We can reduce emotional cost by creating a low-stakes environment where mistakes are treated as learning data, not character flaws.